All right, let's talk dates. Now, very early on in the class, people asked, well, Jonathan, how do you deal with dates? Do you use them as strings? Do you do them as numbers? And the answer is neither. I also said we were going to do dates later. Maybe you were just like, well, when are we ever going to do dates? Well, I waited till we start talking about classes because in JavaScript, we use the date class in order to handle dates. And since we're talking about classes, this is a perfect example of why we have classes and what they're used for. All right, so the date class, you can see it's green in the Visual Studio Code editor, okay, which means it's a class. It's built in. It was like created a long time ago. It is a class that exists to make working with dates a lot easier to do in JavaScript. So if we go to the MDN web docs, you'll notice that we have documentation on dates, okay, the date class. And let me break down what you're seeing here. So usually when you have documentation regarding a class, it will first give you the constructor. Okay, like what information does it start off with? And usually what it will do is it'll give you what's called overloads. All of these are different ways you can instantiate a date with different like information. So for example, you can have a date which is the year and the month. You can have a date with the year, the month, and the day. You can have a date with the year, the month, the day, and the hours. So depending on what information you have, you could start off the date. So these are all overloads, meaning all of these are the constructor function. They're all the same function, but they all like take in different information. Another thing to point out is on the left, these are all the methods that are with the date class. Remember, methods are functions that are attached to classes. So there is a date class, and so therefore the date class has a bunch of date methods like get time and get hours. And you can use this documentation to see, okay, cool, what functionality comes with the date out the box. So let's break some of this down. But I wanted to kind of go over the documentation because when you have these built-in classes, they'll talk about the constructor, they'll talk about overloads and syntax, and then they'll go into real detail about like what you should expect and returns and what things are optional and what things are not optional and what methods are there. So there's a lot here. I just wanted to kind of call it out to let you know that this exists. Okay, where is the information you're looking for, and then I will like break it down a bit. So here's the documentation. Let's actually work with dates. All right. What I've been doing is another way you can run TypeScript is with that TS node library. The command is npx ts-node dates.ts. In this case, dates.ts is the file. So it's npx ts-node and then the name of the file. So remember, with TypeScript is not really the thing that's running. It's a JavaScript file. TypeScript gets transpiled into JavaScript. The JavaScript is the thing that runs. Now you can do all of that stuff manually, but like it's annoying and takes time. TS node does it for you. It will convert your TypeScript into JavaScript and then run it. So npx ts-node and then whatever file you want to run. So we have on line 4 new date. Okay, if you just instantiate date, remember instantiation, we're using that new keyword, right? And date is a built-in class. If you instantiate a date without giving any parameters, there's nothing in this constructor. So the constructor, you see the two parentheses that are pink here. Okay, that's a constructor, right? So there's nothing in there. I'm not giving any arguments for the constructor. If we just run it as is, then we get the current date, 2022, December 11th, and then here's a timestamp. Okay, so one thing I do want to note is that when it gets the current date, the computer is not psychic, so it depends. I hope the date in time on your computer is correct, because that's where it's getting it from. It could also be that the computer is running on a server in a different time zone. All right, so just keep those like little small things in mind when you say, okay, get the current date. What the current date and time is could be dependent on a lot of different factors. All right, but if you just do new date with no arguments in the constructor, it will just give you the current date and time. What if we want a specific date? So there's another constructor. So here's the overload. You see how it's still new date? This is new date, this is new date. But like the number of arguments we give is different. This is an overload. Okay, method overload, meaning same method, still the constructor, but we're going to give it different information. And if you give it 3 arguments, then you can give it the year, the month, and the day. Now notice the year is 0. Months are 0 indexed, so January is 0. February is 1, March is 2, etc. So let's go ahead and see what this new employee start date is. I'm going to comment this out and uncomment this. Okay, and then we are going to run it, npx tsnode dates.ts. Okay, cool. So we got 2022, January 2nd. Okay, remember January is 0. Okay, so you can use different overloads, meaning you don't have to necessarily, like, let's say you don't have like the day, or that's not important to you, you just care about year and month. You could just do year and month. So 1984, and then this is March. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and run this. Okay, save everything. I'm not using nodemon, just being repetitive so you can see the same command over and over. Right, so we got March 1st, 1984. Okay, now notice how if you don't give the day and the time, there's like a default. So the default will be the first day of that month. Now, that is essentially how you do dates in JavaScript. You're going to have the date class, you're going to instantiate a new one, you're going to like pick what information you want to give. Do you want the current date and time? Do you want like a specific year, month, and day? You get to decide that. Now, you also have a number of methods that come, out the box. So let's use one of them. Let's go ahead and do get full year. So I have employee start date, and then you can extract, like, let's say you have a date that has like year, month, and day and time. You can just, like, let's say you only care about the year. Okay, you don't want to like destroy the date. You just want like the specific like year from it. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so I went to employee start date, and I just got the year 2022, okay, which is a number. So if you're ever wondering what these return, so like, oops, did not mean to do that. So like, if you hover over it, the method get full year, see how it's in yellow, and then you see how this date.get full year returns number, so you always know what type you're working with. So get full year will return a number, and you'll notice that it's 2022. That's the year of that date. There's also get month and get day. You also can use the date object to sort of like set new dates. So like one common thing is like, for example, let's say I wanted to get 3 months from an employee. Like, what month will it be from an employee start date? So I have my employee start date here. I can get its month and add 3 to it. And I'll take the new date and set its month to whatever value this is. So you can actually change dates around too. So you can use like set month, set year, set day if you would like to do that. And you also can use like math to add months, add days, add hours, etc. I'm going to do new date.set month. And I'm just going to go do console.log new date and console.log employee start date. Okay. All right, so notice the month for the employee start date is 1, and then I added 3 to the month, and now I got 4. Okay, so this is like, it's very useful. So like adding and subtracting months is going to be something you're going to be doing in your job, like checking if a person's been with the company for 90 days, scheduling things like we're supposed to do X, Y, and Z next year on 1 year from this date. And so things like that, right? So that using addition and subtraction with dates, okay, is very, very useful. But yeah, so this class date makes working with dates quite simple. So that's kind of the reason why I waited till we talked about classes to talk about dates, because I wanted to kind of give you a feel for like, this is why we have classes and why we have instantiation object-oriented programming. Because now I can work with a date, and it's very simple. Like, I can do all sorts of very flexible things, okay, by instantiating a date with the information I want, and then I can use the methods that are attached to the date. So when I meant methods, these functions get full year, get hours, get seconds, get time zone, like all this stuff, right? I get all this free functionality with the date object. I can construct it how I would like to do it, and it makes working with dates and solving business problems quite easy. So this is how we work with dates in JavaScript.